Okay, here we are. So spawning in the bottom corner of the map as the blue, the player number 1, we've got Fifou as the Egyptian today. And he's already going to take his hunt and throw down a second storehouse for his woodline. So he's going to be a bit delayed into barracks, if not try and rush for age 2. Meanwhile, SpartanxElite, our player number 2, Greek player, red trunks, he's opted for a single storehouse for now. Just gathering on some wood. Looks like he wants to throw down a barracks. Yeah, so he's going for an early barracks. Fifou is going to be playing quite defensively going into this, considering he's chair OP. Chair's OP. He is going to have to basically have quite a delayed barracks, and I'm not quite sure if he's going to get the option to skip it, because he's not playing Babylonian, for instance, and he's not playing, say, Greek or Persian to get out the bowman. So it's going to be quite hard for him to defend in this situation, because he's going to need to deal damage with camels as soon as he gets, you know, the stables out, or having a stack second town center and really deny SpartanxElite the chance to push in on him. So it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Spartan's got the delayed second storehouse, but it's not a huge loss. I mean, if he's gathering only a small amount of wood now, it's not really setting him back at all. The barracks is going up, and Fifou's actually managed to catch 3 sheep here, but it looks like Spartan might be able to catch them as well. A later barracks here from Fifou, so he did opt to go for the barracks being Egypt, because it sort of is the logical opener. Yeah, like I said, you can't really go range or stables first on them. You can sort of go stables first on the big maps for sure, because camels are really good at denying other cavalry and good for raiding, but yeah, they're not really like lancers in fighting against spearmen if your opponent goes for the early spears, which he has. So Fifou is attempting to try and deal what damage he can on the spears, because he can always save the scout and heal it up later. And this is going to give him a bit of a good tell over, you know, just how many spears there are. But getting it caught in the middle like that's not so good. He might lose this now. He's not looking either, so if he loses this, this is going to be a bit of a downer for him, because he's not going to be able to get any good intel out of his opponent's base now. But he did know about 3 spears, so, or 2 spears. Hopefully he knew anyway. But that's a lot of workers for a single hunt. So personally, I probably opt to try and take a second, because there probably is one over either here or here. In fact, there's probably 2, because Fifou's actually got 2 nice ones here. Ghost Lake's quite a small map, really. I really love the pace of the map. I think it's one of the best in the pool. And SpartanxElite's going straight on the storehouse. He wants to try and snipe this, but he's not going to have enough. Bit interesting to see the Priestess micro. Oh, hello, birdie. Onto that, but now the Priestess has switched targets back onto the Spearman, so he might be able to save this, but he needs to be careful to not get the Priestess too close to the spears, because otherwise if they aggro onto it, it might not be so good for the Egyptian player. It's a 100 gold investment, but right now it looks, well, 16 to 15 in terms of villages. And it looks like Fifou's going to be able to hold this for the most part. He hasn't lost the Priestess yet, but he is focusing, was focusing the Scout, and he's got this split damage here. So these guys with split damage, it's not preferable to have. You're best off trying to snipe a unit at a time, or 2 units at a time, you know, with your spears. So right now he's dealing damage to 3 targets, but it's going to be quite a slow pick on all 3, rather than with 1 or 2 of them, he'd kill them a lot faster, nullify the damage from the opponent. So it's always sort of preferable, if you can micro it, to micro it. Obviously, if it's going to mean that you lose out on your macro, your production, it's not such a good idea, but that's where things like control groups come in handy. But it does look like Fifou's managed to turn the tide here. He's got the 6 spearmen, forcing back 3 from the Greek. SpartanxElite's actually falling a little bit behind on score at the moment, 18 villages to 18, so Fifou's caught up, and he is throwing up his temple, so he actually is going to pull slightly ahead in villages while that's in training, because it's about 3 villages in that time. He can catch up by, but if he, Spartan's going to get a little bit more damage off here, but Fifou is responding in time, and he still has the bigger unit count, so he is able to actually take this fight, and he is going to pick off another spearman, I believe. Yeah, so these guys should have a snare lock with the 2 of them alternating hits. Yeah, so he does get the kill. Fifou has got 5. but so does the Greek player Spartan, and the Spartans' spears will be slightly stronger than the Egyptian spears. They've got a... oh, what's that? 70 more health? Yeah, 70 more health, so that does give them a bit more leeway. In terms of damage, they're both 10 DPS spears. No, 11 from the Greek. So the Greek spears are actually the better fighting unit, but they are a little bit more expensive. So it's 45 versus 60 cost units, basically. So the Egyptian player is sort of put on the back foot now. He has to back off again. Taking a fight on even numbers is something you don't want to really be doing unless you're up against Celt. Just because you haven't really got the stats to take the fight. And even then the Celt player does have more damage. Even though he's got spears that are about as paper thin, he does have more damage. Well, these idle village are going to hurt Fifou a little bit, but he's actually going to rally them straight back onto the town centre, so he's going to get this built with 9 villages. He should be able to actually get this up in time, provided that he continues to attack single targets and not let his opponent scout this. I don't think SpartanxElite's going to know just yet, so Spartan isn't aware. He isn't able to see this, but there is a high pacifist in the mix, and there is an axeman coming into the mix as well, so 2 axemen are going to be able to deal enough damage to repel this. And unfortunately for SpartanxElite, he didn't scout this, so even if he couldn't destroy it or delay it completely, might have been able to get a nice villager kill. He's going to have seen it now, I believe, so he's going to attempt to go, but it's a bit too late, so he's got to back off again. So these guys, both on their second town centre now. Well, Spartan's a little bit later, but I think he forced out eco upgrades earlier, which, you know, isn't such a bad choice sometimes, because it means that, you know, with the villages that you've got, they end up being worth a lot more. It's a little bit laggy though, considering we've got the 2 spectators, as well as myself. So there's another barracks coming out. Not another stables in the way yet, and I don't think Fifou's actually taken berry picker's gloves yet. Village accounts, we've got 31 to 27, so he's actually slightly pulled ahead of SpartanxElite in that regard. He's going to try and get out of loom eventually, and I think he's not going to get any pressure on him until that's out, so that's going to be good for him. And now there's a 1-1-1 opening here from the Greeks, so he's got one of each of these buildings out. Barracks, archery range, stables. Got just 2 barracks. 3rd barracks coming out. I think Fifou might want to have a look at getting a stables out eventually. Even if it's only just 1, it's nice to be able to deal with your opponent with the Sarasofroy, or even just apply your own raiding pressure. A couple of spearmen just idle over here. Just keeping an eye on that gold mine, although there is another one here for SpartanxElite, and I'm not sure if Fifou... So Fifou actually knows about that gold mine, but he's opting to defend this 3rd one. But it is also going to mean he does get good vision of any Saris heading through this little passage. Just in case that's what SpartanxElite opts to go with. There's 4 barracks now, so... a bit interesting. Personally, I probably would have gone 3, then a stables, then another barracks. Or gone for 3 armory range, armory, and then either stables or barracks. Because as the Toxotes start to ramp up, even though you can have the slingers to overpower that, you probably are better off getting the cavalry just to be able to force your opponent back with run-bys and stuff. And especially once they get Saris, which Spartan is starting to do, it's going to mean that the slingers end up being less and less effective. So there's a priestess coming in now to heal. There's 1 on each town centre. It's actually quite nice to see from Fifou. He's going to be able to pump out workers at the same rate as the Greek player, and he's still 3 ahead, whilst also getting healing, but it is an investment nonetheless. That's going to cost him 200 gold and 3 population overall for having the 3 priestesses. But a bit of a misrally here from Spartan, who does actually have to back out because there's a good slinger count now, and there's not really enough Saris just yet to actually deal with that, so... Spartan's opting to play it a little bit safe. He's already fallen behind on score a little bit. Fifou is up in production by about 20 population now. And this is interesting. He's got an early sort of town watch. But it is going to mean that whenever he's got buildings out, he's going to have that little bit more vision. 25% is actually quite a fair bit. Things like storehouses. end up being able to see a significant amount, almost as much as, say, a pre-town watch outpost, so that's something to keep in mind. It sounds like a useless tech, but it ends up being quite good if you're worried about being raided. And this single Toxotes being rallied in here is just going to get destroyed. And same deal with this Hypospis, I think. So basically losing units for free there. A third coming in from Spartan. But I think he's realised now. And Fifou is taking a Silver Age, so he's also getting his unit training upgrade out of his barracks, which is quite good on Egyptians because it means that they can get access to both faster slingers and faster infantry. And when you're playing entirely around your barracks, thank you for the follow, when you're playing entirely around the barracks, it ends up being quite a crucial tech. Here he is able to move straight up here. There isn't really the Saris to try and pick this off, and even though he hasn't got any spearmen in the mix to kill the Saris quickly, I think he's got enough slingers at this stage to be able to sort of push Spartan back. He's pushed in with a nice population lead here. I think you could sort of tell with the score that he was starting to pull ahead of his opponent, although this priestess all the way back's not getting any healing off. The Saris trying to target something in the front and wasn't able to get any hits off. A couple of panic towers now for SpartanxElite, but if they do go up in time, it's going to be very hard for Fifou to get any damage out without any cavalry or without any siege. Sort of good position here for the priestess. It's just outside of both town centers, so Spartan can't just try and rally her down. But now she's way overextended now. She's going to get picked off really quickly. But that was a good little wedge for these because they weren't being harassed by the Sari. So SpartanxElite falling further behind in the population. Fifou getting more and more upgrades. He's getting Spearman Champion because he wants to be able to defend against the Saris very, very cheaply. So these are actually only 5 gold now. So they've fallen from 45 to 40 cost units. He is able to sort of not throw away the Axeman so much, but he can... Well, I suppose they're only a 40 cost unit as well. So the Egyptian units are actually really, really cheap compared to the other civs, except for maybe Celt. Which makes for them being really disposable, but at the same time, that can also be a bit of a strength. You can send one in to scout and lose it, not really lose anything for it. Fifou, bit of an interesting position there. He probably is best off just chucking it here. And probably best off pulling one of these back to the army. He really only needs one on each position just to know for sure. Or even to just throw down an outpost and bring the units back. Just give him the army size to try and overpower SpartanxElite. But at the same time, I think SpartanxElite isn't doing a terrible job here. He needs to try and get these villages back to action. But otherwise, I think he's quite safe at the moment. He needs to keep going with the upgrades. Needs to try and get the academy out so he can force out upgrades even quicker. Force out units even quicker once he does, because that's where the Greeks get their train time boost. On top of the ones that you can take out of your barracks. I'm getting a couple of free kills there, Fifou is, but it looks like he's going to try and go for something up here. He's sent 4 villages up, so he's going to maybe try and either tower or fort. I'm thinking only tower, considering there's only 4 there, and a fort takes forever with only 4 villages. But it might well be a fort because it's got such a high number of stone, and I'm wondering if he's going to try and gather a little bit more. They are just sort of dancing around there. Oh no, he has enough stone being Egypt, so he needs to get this out quickly though, because he's only got the 4 villages on it, and he needs to probably win this fight in order to be able to defend this. And these slingers need to try and get it targeted on the Toxotes. Likewise, SpartanxElite's doing a good job of pulling back here. He's not really losing anything, but at the same time, he needs to maybe possibly run a cavalry unit around just to investigate what's going on here, because Fifou is trying to defend a point here, losing units for free, so to speak. Oh, now Fifou is going to get a good couple of trades there, because Bowman versus Slinger unit is not such a good fight to be taking. So the Toxotes now are able to really unleash their potential on the infantry, and the Saris have distracted a lot of it while trying to wrap around and get onto the Slingers. So SpartanxElite's doing a good job with that, getting a couple of good connects there, but at the same time he's forced to really try and dance these archers and could possibly look at backing up a little bit further now. He's in range of one of the towers, so this is going to give him a bit of a leg up, but this fortress of Fifou's is going to finish up in time, so he's going to have a lot of forward pressure out of this. I'm not sure if he's going to bother with going for elephants, because they are quite expensive. A lot of the time you're best off not even going with the elephants, just throwing down a workshop alongside it and going with just full-on siege units like your siege towers, and preparing yourself to be able to take Palantonons in Age 4. Fifou is really low on food at the moment, but he does have 20 gatherers on food, so he should be able to bounce back in that regard and keep powering through this, while SpartanxElite's got enough resources in the bank here to keep producing stuff, but it just doesn't have enough production facilities to be able to get enough units out in time to repel this. He has a good spread with his TCs and his towers, but he's going to lose one of these towers soon, so there's going to be less and less static defense here, and if Fifou can snipe one of these buildings now, one of these production facilities, it can be really hard for SpartanxElite to come back. There hasn't been a lot of pressure on Fifou since the start of the game, and it's not like there's a Sari run by or anything that's really going to slow down the Egyptian player now. The population, you're looking at 69 to 42 for the villager count, so SpartanxElite's really started to fall behind in that regard. There's been a couple of villager kills here. The farms are basically empty now for SpartanxElite, so they're sort of dead in the water, and now there's more spears and axemen up the top here, getting what kills they can, and there's towers being picked off. It looks as though this could be it for Spartan, so to speak, because Fifou's got upgrades in queue, he's got a much bigger army, he's well ahead in terms of population at the moment, and it looks like he's just parade pushing all these units across, and he's even got units just standing around doing nothing really, and he has still got plenty inside his opponent's base. SpartanxElite's holding on desperately with everything he's got though, but it looks like it's going to be too little too late, I think, because these units are just dying as soon as they pop out. The Saris are really only the thing that's saving his bacon, and even still they're sort of focused on units that they can't really deal with alone. Sorry, I got a bit of tickle in my throat. And GG. Let's see if they want to do another on equal footing. So in terms of resources, Fifou really started to pull ahead in the late game up there, I think, because he started to really build a lot of momentum with those forward pushes and never really give Spartan a chance to recover from not dealing a lot of damage early. I think Spartan also fell behind on macro a little bit. So the villager production, actually pretty reasonable. But I think Spartan never really saw an opportunity to take a good fight, and so he never really looked at taking one really, and the Egyptian eventually was able to just overwhelm him, get an upgrade lead and push in, I think. So GG guys.